Here we go!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Horizon Live with Oculos 410. And now your host, Oculos 410.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome back to another Horizon Live with me, Oculus 410. Appreciate everybody coming out today. It's a wonderful day in Horizon. Today we are going to be introducing in a moment Sassy3K and Echo Flower. But first, I want to welcome everybody and recommend that you check out not only the Vidyuu Nights channel on YouTube, where you can find this content, but also the Vidyuu Tutorials channel, where you can find lots of tutorials on building, scripting, and all things Horizon. Thank you, Vidyuu, and thank you, Lakes, KO, and the team for putting together such amazing content. All right, so now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and welcome out Sassy K and Echo Flower.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Echo Flower, is this your first time in the studio?
Yes, thank you.
It's great to have you. This is our new venue for our talk show, so we wanted to try and bring people on here to have good conversations with good content, something a little deeper than kind of just about world creation and world building, and dig a little deeper into more about you and then your creation. So let's hear a little bit more about you, Echo Flower, not only in VR, but maybe a little bit outside of VR and what brought you into VR.
Well, I am from the West Coast and I work for a university. What got me to VR? Well, my son had an Oculus and he said, "You should try this out." And I did the tutorial for the Oculus and I did a meditation app and I said, "This is now my Oculus." And then
Fantastic.
I commandeered the Oculus from him and he had to go buy his own Oculus. And I so happened to come across Horizon Worlds and I had no idea what it was. And I came in one day and once I found my way out of the plaza and into build mode, I started building within 3 days. I think I've only been here about 5.5, 6 months now. I
Wow.
love it here. I find such purpose here. It's been a creative outlet for me and also a means to not pour myself into work so much because I have really blurred lines when it comes to work-life balance since COVID. So, and then it also gave me it fed my social need because things had changed so much that I was able to safely be amongst people and have deep, meaningful conversations in pockets of this place that were super authentic. And it just ticked every box for me. So I'm so grateful. And I've been here ever since. There's not a day that really goes by without me logging in, except for when I was on vacation. So I don't have a background in building or programming, but the tools here were so simple and easy, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here. So
That's great. That's actually all of the questions beyond VR and in VR that I wanted to ask. So you touched on everything. That was perfect. And of course, thank your son for giving up his Oculus for you because, it's great to have you here. I haven't interacted with you much, maybe once in the past so far. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here, not only to get your story, but also how it came to be you and Sassy working together. So thank you for all that background.
yeah.
Sassy, how about you?
Oh boy. So before I got invested way too much in VR, I was just an ordinary high school kid working my butt off day in, day out. And I remember my very first time that I was super fascinated about the potential of how virtual reality came to be was actually at a GameStop, funny enough. There are select locations where people could try out the HTVC Vive or something along the lines of that. And I remember I was asking my mom, I was like, "Hey, mom, could we go to the GameStop because I want to try out the headset?" And then she was like, "Sure, kiddo." And so we had to like come up with a time and schedule and whatever, and that's cool. And so I remember going to this GameStop, and I was like, and I saw the HTC Vive just in front of me, and I was like, oh, I was the equivalent of like seeing God, and I was like, oh, and so, and so I was too scared to ask the clerk, like, hey, could I try out the headset? So I'm just foolishly wandering around the GameStop, just like, okay, I don't want to ask, I'm too scared, there's too many people. And then my mom was like, "Why haven't you asked him, Sassy?" And I was like, "I'm too scared." And then she's like, "I'll go ask him instead." And then so my mom asked the clerk if I could try the headset, and so he was cool with it. And then I got to try it out a little bit. One of the applications I got to try was Tilt Brush. I believe was from Google, and so I tried a little bit of that, and I was
Love
like,
that.
"Wow!" And so ever since that day, in my spare time, I've been looking at videos about pretty much anything virtual reality related, and I was super fascinated with the it was just about practically everything from the unboxing to the setup procedure to just, the games and the applications within virtual reality that you could try, and I was super fascinated by all of it. And I remembered actually on Halloween last year, my mom woke me up and she was like, "Hey son, trick or treat." And I was like, "Huh?" And she's like, "Come on, choose one." And I was like, "How about if I chose neither?" And then she's like, "Just choose one." She's like, "Just choose one." And I was like, "Okay, treat. I like candy." And then she goes to the spare bedroom, comes back with a box for me to open, and then what do you know? It's the Quest 2. And it was the more expensive one, the more storage capacity one, and I was like, "Yas!" And I was very excited.
So does she like know a little bit about video games, like to not only pick the Quest 2 out instead of the Vive and pick the higher storage one? Like how did she know? Like did you hint to it at all?
Um, I might have like thousands of times.
Thousands of times.
No, but like
Leaving
I
browser
talked with
windows
her about
open
it.
on the computer or something. Like oops.
Yeah, like I know one day, like when I've like shown her a couple of videos about it. I know one video was from Virtual Reality Oasis that I've watched a lot when it came to
Mhm.
like virtual reality content. And I've showed her about, about the Quest 2 unboxing and the setup and just kind of like a little hands-on demonstration. And I kind of showed her like a couple of like other videos alongside that, just showing off like the Quest 2 capabilities and just like all the games and the applications that are within the headset that people can try.
Mhm.
And so, but in other words, yeah, I hinted her at her like numerous times.
Well, that's good. So it's interesting the contrast here. So your son actually used commandeered his, and your
Mhm.
mom bought you yours, and now you're both in Horizon interacting together and world building. Now, it's amazing to me that Horizon allows things like that to bring people together to where in the real world, it's not like you'd be living in a house and you'd be like building one, and then you both end up like building your own house together. Like it just doesn't make sense. But in VR, it's something that you could totally do, and that's what I love about Horizon. Let's talk about how you both met because I imagine that you didn't just start building a world and then Sassy say, "Hey, let me get in there." I mean, you had to have some kind of a crossover and then decide there's an idea, let's go for it. So, how about Sassy? How did you two meet? And then I'm going to ask Echo
Oh,
Flower.
God, I'm gonna have to be completely honest, and this is mostly because my memory is just not the greatest at recalling things. I have no recollection about how me and Echo met, but I'm just gonna pretend that we were all of a sudden in space, and
In
we were
space.
yeah, and like I was just, like shooting asteroids. I was doing, little target practice, and then I saw Echo Flower came by and she was like, "Hey, Sassy." And I was like, "What's up?" And she was like, "Can I do some target practice with you?" And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And I was like, "Just grab a gun off the rack and then let's just do some target practice." And so we did a lot of target practice in space. And then afterwards we became best friends.
I'm loving the dramatization. It feels like I'm there. So so Echo Flower, now tell me about what actually happened, or give me a better story if it exists.
But it has
Well,
to be
as
in
you know,
space.
there's a
In space.
yes, it was in space. We were on Jupiter. Um,
Jeez.
well, you know, it's true because I don't know exactly the moment that I met Sassy. Sassy's just always been on my friends list. So as you know, the community is fairly small here right now because of beta. And I feel like
Mhm.
everybody kind of knows everybody. So, but it was at an event by World Museum um, to amplify your voice. So I didn't even know. I actually missed the first 10 minutes. I came in, we had a task, and we picked our work groups, and there were actually three of us. We have no idea what happened to the third. They might be buried in that world somewhere. I don't know. Look for the shovel. Um, but we chose to be a group together to create a
Mhm.
world, and we just had no idea what that was going to look like, and how it came about was really the first thing I think we built was the big skeleton in there, and that was just during conversation talking to each other about who we were, and we
Mhm.
still had no idea what this world was going to be. And then me and Sassy got back together to talk about the world. And I was having an incredibly busy work couple weeks. And I said, I'm going to try to come in as often as possible so we can do this. And then it kind of organically grew through just conversation. So there's quite a bit of an age difference between us. So I was, this is a phenomenon too. Like, where else am I going to work with a 19-year-old, right? Like, well, you're 19, right? So,
Soon to be.
I don't really go out and seek out young people to work with. And I just felt like, this is really wonderful because there's just a large gap as well. And it gave me opportunity, from generation to generation to understand perspectives. It just kind of grew organically. I'm really proud of our little world.
That's really great, and I'm loving all of the
Mhm.
feedback that you're giving because there's a couple things there. One, in social interaction in the real world, when people show up late, it's kind of like the record scratches and everybody's head turns, and it's like, oh, they're 20 minutes late. But in VR, you load in and people are just like, hey, look who's here, and they celebrate you and go back to what you're doing. So that's one thing that I really love about VR is because I am, fashionably late in real life as little as possible because I hate to be that person that walks in late. And then in VR, I'm just like, oh, there's 30 people and they're all spread out in 10 different worlds. Where should I go and interrupt? And I'll jump in and just, whatever I want to do in that world. But I love that you brought that up. You arrived late, but you were still able to just jump in and be a part of the event and then meet Sassy and start building. So this skeleton that you started working on, is that part of the same world that ultimately became the let's talk about the LGBTQ world that you built together?
Yeah, we left the skeleton. We did. We totally left
So
it,
so
gave it a
it's
little rainbow headdress there, and you know.
I was curious about how it got there because I was like, well, maybe it's for Halloween because we're in the spooky season and it kind of fits a theme. So I was like, cool. But it's interesting because there are some things in worlds I see where people have something that kind of just doesn't fit the entire theme, and it's because it's something that started their collaborative efforts together, or like you put it together into the theme and then it became just a part of the world because it was how it started. Before we jump into talking about that world, Echo Flower, have you created any other worlds before that?
I have. I've I've actually created quite a few worlds. I was building my third day in here, and
Wow.
yeah, I don't know. I'm a tactile person. So getting my hands on the tools felt really natural and easy. And I was shocked that I could actually build something in here. I have no artistic background whatsoever. And I was like, oh, they've made this so simple, even though they're very basic blocks. But so
Hmm.
I just keep creating worlds that I don't create them for people. So the world that we did has purpose, which feels really good. My worlds are just my creative expression out in the world. And they're so easy and very mellow and chill. I like them to be peaceful and places where maybe people can go and feel peacefulness, you know.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that, I knew you had like 10 worlds published, but there are a couple in there that are actually inventory hubs. And before I get over
Oh,
back to
yes.
Sassy, I want to ask you about those inventory hubs, because a lot of people
Mhm.
publish inventory hubs or asset worlds so they can share their creations. Is that what you're doing with those?
Yeah, I thought to myself there might be many people who don't want to create, who can't create, find it hard to create, don't have time to create, who may want a place of their own, and they can just come by and be like, "Oh, I love this pond. I want this pond." And I'm going to take this pond. So come by, pick up the pond. There's a beautiful goddess sculpture. Do you want that? You know, windows. There's some windows. Some people donated a few things. So, and I was just like, I'm going to put
Very
them
cool.
here. If people come by and want them, I'm happy to share them. That's, that's what I started a while, you know, in the very beginning. So I haven't had many people reach out because I don't know how to get that out there to the masses. It's hard in the search thing. It's kind of like, you know,
Well,
it
I can tell
changes.
you one thing.
So
Lake So 5 is the I guess he's the self-proclaimed king of creating assets and giving them away. Um,
yes,
You know what?
I have his
If it's
birds.
okay for 2 seconds, I love that. Great job. Thank you so much for being a part of the asset sharing community. And I know that they're working really hard to make it easier to do that. But in the meantime, this video is a call out to anybody to go check out Echo Flowers Worlds. Go, into Horizon, take a look at them, and go ahead, and if you see something, you can message or post a photo inside that world and say, hey, can I get a copy of this? Then you get added as a test or as an editor, and you can import it into your worlds. So no, I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for doing that, Echo Flower. It's so great to hear about other people. I wasn't even aware you were doing that. I'm so excited to hear more of that.
appreciate all of the work that you're putting in. No, as far as Sassy, your karaoke world. Well, let's talk about the karaoke world, because number one, when I found out about it, I literally was like, "Let's go, world, Sassy, travel," and it was everything that I wanted to be and more. That's why I even grabbed the mask that you have in there and was, kind of running around with it, even though you're not supposed to. It kind of throws you in reverse. So I just ran the world backwards because he had a script on it. But let's talk about your Sassy AF karaoke world, which we have a door over here for people walking in.
Oh boy, I should have expected this by now. So the story behind the karaoke world was I've watched a lot of Agretzko on Netflix way back in the day, and I'm very excited for season 4 to come out December 16th. Mark it,
Okay, let's go
calendars,
check it out.
boom. Um, and I was really into Agretzko, not because of the storyline and the characters, but I also felt some resemblance because every time I get like super annoyed or super fed up or my tolerance is just super low in general, I always like feel in the back of my mind like metal music is just playing in my
So you're
head
ready
and
to
I'm
rage
like,
out.
yeah, like like something like that. A funny little story. Before the karaoke world, I was very inspired by not only how much of a snack Waffle Copter is, but I was also inspired by his puzzle
Woo!
worlds that I love, and really ignited this passion for me to start like being in love with puzzle games in general, not just Horizon specifically, but just outside of Horizon.
Sure,
And I
sure.
was like, and so I wanted to make a puzzle map. At least I attempted to. And the initial name of it was going to be Puzzle Manor. That was kind of like the first kind of world per se that I've really tested with the creator tools initially. And I later realized that my brain cannot tolerate big scripting moments. and I kind of scratched the idea for now,
Same.
and I was started thinking like, okay, what worlds are in Horizon that no one has ever made yet? And I started looking, and I was like, coming from someone who has been in choir for like 6 years of school and is in love with like karaoke and just singing in general, and I was like, there's no karaoke spot. What the heck's up with that? And so then I came into the fruition that I went I created a new blank world, and I'm calling it my Sassy AF Karaoke. And I wanted to be heavily inspired by Agretzko, from the overall design of the world to the mask, and just specifically all the little details, but still throwing in my little sassy pizzazz. And that's how the karaoke world came to be. And I will mention this now. I initially, when I was working on it, it was mostly by myself in terms of the building layout, and as well as the interior layout of the karaoke world, and then like a little bit of the basic scripting, like the respawn and the
Hmm.
teleport and whatever. Later on, I got Shadal to big shout out to Shadal. He helped me
Should
out
out.
with the more complex scripting, like the return object script being the biggest one. And I was like, yay, I got my world looks cooler now. And then that's when I hit the publish.
Now, I love the creation from when you spawn in, you're kind of on the street and you're like, we got to go somewhere. Where you want to go? Hey, there's a karaoke spot around the corner. Let's check it out. And you go walking down the street and you cut down that alley and then you just see the sign and it's Sassy AF Karaoke. Why didn't you have people spawn into the world? Like, what was the point of spawning outside? Although I kind of probably gave exactly it away and I fed you the answer, but tell me about why you created it that way.
Yeah, it was actually funny because that was kind of the initial plan. Was like what you were mentioning, like having people just spawn inside the world. But the fruition of that was because there's parts in the show where Agresco is, had a very like busy day at work, or a really horrible day at work, I should say, dealing with her self-centered boss. And because of
Oh,
that, there's times in the show where you can see the main character walking on the sidewalk, and then looks at the corner and just bam, sees the karaoke spot. And so I kind of wanted, so when I initially saw those scenes from the show, I came with the vision that I want people to spawn in the sidewalk because I want them to have like this sense of feeling like, maybe not necessarily they're having a bad day overall, but more so of the fact that I want people to be like, oh, maybe they want to get some fresh air, or they want to like, or say like they're hanging out with like a ladies' night out and go like, "Yas, queen, where should we go?" And then they like look in the corner and bam, karaoke spot. Like, yeah, that's
that's
fine,
wonderful.
queen.
Boom,
Yeah.
baby.
I love it. And it's great because I've seen so many worlds like my own, the Club Oculus. You spawn in and you're at the walkway into the club, but you're not outside, so you still feel you're inside. You had just kind of walked in the main doors, and you walk in, and it's just an open club. And it's something that was just never crossed my mind. Have people come into it? What would the front of it be? And you kind of give all of that. It's this, you know, awesome little karaoke spot just right off of the main road, and I just love how you put it all together. So I kind of want to talk about your latest world, which I think everyone is excited to hear about with Echo Flower. Get informed about everything LGBTQ. So you mentioned that you kind of started the world, and then it kind of you kind of collaborated together. Let's talk about how the idea came together and where it is now.
Initially, I wanted to
So
join
not in
Paige,
space.
but yeah,
Nothing
no, it's
good.
not in space. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in space. Um,
Okay.
It's in a
so
galaxy,
initially,
isn't it?
The
We're on a
galaxy,
space station. We're in a galaxy.
galaxy. You just had to sneak your name in, didn't you?
so
All
so
right, so
so
go
the
ahead.
initial so the initial idea was like what Echo was saying, minus space, was that Page Better World Museum, as we all know, was hosting a
Amazing person.
women world building workshop 1 week in October, and I wanted to partake, mainly because I had the rationale that I was going to learn something. Maybe it was like maybe a little more like, maybe it was kind of like the saying like you learn something new every day, and I was kind of hoping to take that into consideration when I went. And so I'm in the world and I'm like, I can't wait till somebody chooses me and I can learn. Someone can be my sensei or whatever. And then Paige walks up to me and she is like, "Hey, Sassy, do you want to lead a group?" like you have some experience, and I was like, yeah, experience only making like one world. and so and so she's like, yeah, yeah, come on, let's build a group. And I was like, okay. And so, at that point it was me, Echo Flower, and then one of the women from XR. We came together, and then we created the world. We sent collaboration invites out, and then we just popped on in. And then we didn't really do a whole lot of building that day except for the skeleton. And the story behind the skeleton was because I was talking about my appendix surgery I had last year, like the week after my birthday. And so everybody kind of made the contribution to the skeleton. And then everybody was like, this skeleton needs to have a voice. And I was like, I got it. I lost my appendix. Woo! Like something like that. And so
I
and
wish that
so
voice was there, but
So
then again, I
yeah.
guess maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah. But I figured it'd be funny because it's like Halloween, but it's like not in the typical sense of like boo, like scaring people.
Right.
But ever since that day, I was kind of thinking about how I wanted the world to be. I just didn't want like the world to just be there and be like, oh, I've wasted my time. I wanted to like have like a true meaning behind it all. And I remembered back in, I think this was May, like late May or so, I worked on a World with Flutter college journey for mental health awareness, which is educating
Hey,
people
Flutter.
about mental health and about all the different kinds there is, and just overall spreading the message that you're not alone and there's many people that are having their own fair share of struggles, and that there is resources to help. And I remember having like this feeling of like accomplishment and euphoria. And I remembered how great it was to really like not only create the world and just fulfill that whole process of it, but also hearing people's stories about how they found the world, and like sharing their own like mental health related stories. And I was like, this is great. And I wanted to do something along the lines of that, of educating people, and I just needed to come up with like the main topic. And so, and coming from a place where I'm gender questioning, and been taking the time to just kind of enjoy the process. I
Hmm.
I That's when I realized, hey, we should make a world educating people about LGBTQ. And then that's when I passed the idea along to Echo Flower. And then we just started pushing like time wise into the world for like the past couple days before publishment. And then we published the world. And it's great because I didn't see this at first. We actually had like two kind of sides of the coin in terms of why we worked on this. Echo's case, she's an ally of the LGBTQ community and just wanted to show off support to everyone that's a part of it, while also, being educative. Like, again, like the saying goes, you learn something new every day, hoping people learn something from it, even if it's just like one small minor detail. And then there's me, where I myself am gender questioning. I myself have been, taking time to explore my identity, and I also wanted to add my own experience to it and share like kind of like the same message with the mental health awareness, saying that it's okay, and you have a ton of people, friends, family, or otherwise, that are part of the community that are here supporting with you.
That's great. Echo Flower, I want to ask you first. This world, now, originally you started the creation of the world and then handed that
Mhm.
over to Sassy. Tell me a little bit about how that worked out.
The reason behind that is I have limited time, right, and bandwidth.
Hmm.
And I really wanted Sassy to have ownership of the world so there can be a continued updating and adding to, and collaboration adds to it. And I feel like it can also be a means for even documenting Sassy's journey in some ways. Everybody's journey is different, and I am an ally, um, and it's not my journey. So I feel like my responsibility is to help educate, because working at a university that's completely diverse, we teach classes, whether it be microaggressions or LGBTQ, how to be a good ally. We always have room for improvement. So I'm always happy to contribute content and information and teaching materials. But I really felt like it was more about Sassy's journey as well. And I just felt like it was the proper place to be in Sassy's hands. So
No, that's great. That's something that other people can learn as well. If you start a world and it's more fitting for the person you're collaborating with, you can always, since they're a collaborator, they can import that world into a blank world or a template, and they can continue building from that. So it's really great. Aside from the asset worlds and also handing over the ownership by allowing Sassy to import this world, you're really doing a lot of things that people aren't aware of that can be done in Horizon, even with the limited amount of time. And it's really great. And I wanted to point that out. So let's come back to working on your gender identity. Now, in Horizon, I know there were times where I witnessed myself, but also you've talked about where people have misgendered you. Talk about that a little bit and your journey in Horizon, trying to figure out maybe not just who you are, how you feel, but kind of where you are now.
Oh boy. My favorite part of the segment. The whole originality behind it was, like it's kind of like months and months into starting out in VR. This was prior to me joining and signing up for Horizon. I would constantly deal with people who either act surprised when they see my name and then I speak in a guy voice and they're like, "Whoa, she's not a girl," and I'm like, "That's right, I'm a boy." But like again, this was before the whole gender questioning process. At first it was annoying to say the least, because I mostly felt disrespected, and I want people hopefully to learn to just be more, I guess, mindful and to be more questioning about about people and like who they identify as and like pronouns and what have you. And then it was like the more this happens, the more misgendering that I tolerate, the more used to it I am. I have to put into consideration, which I did not initially, that people could just still be learning about, pronouns and just, how people identify themselves. I totally get that, but I know there's some instances where it's kids that mostly do it, and kids in Horizon as the not so nice kind. I'm gonna put it lightly. And I mean, there's obviously nothing we can do about that except for pulling and remove, muting, blocking, purporting, woo. And so,
or try to
You
and
know,
educate.
a fancy script to put them in a timeout box.
Yes.
yeah,
At the beginning, you were being misgendered, and people were saying, she, her, or assuming that you were female, and then hearing your voice and kind of being thrown off by it. It's interesting with prior to VR when people would create their avatars in worlds, whether it was, a fantasy online game, and, being in online gaming since the beginning of online gaming, I've even created female characters to represent myself because I, I just chose a female character for some reason. Of all the male characters that have kind of dominated the video gaming industry, putting a female character into a game, it just was kind of like, why not? And when a lot of guys do that, there was really no stigma behind it or any, oh, that's a guy. People, guys just made female characters and it was no big deal. And in VR, you're actually, instead of having an avatar that you're controlling, it's you. So when people are creating these avatars, I mean, they're realistically creating them to not only look their appearance, but who they feel they are inside. I mean, I could tell you right now, if you notice, I can't touch my actual avatar's belly right here. That's because I chose a little bit of slender avatar to represent myself, because that's who I see myself. I'm Oculos, but I got a little bit of chub right here, and I don't want to show that off in my avatar. But Sassy, you have the eyelashes going. You're rocking them. You got the long red hair. I mean, Echo Flower does not have purple eyes in real life, So these avatars, we're definitely choosing them to kind of really celebrate who we feel we are inside. How about with you? Your avatar's kind of changed a little bit over time, and a recent outfit change that you kind of put back in the closet today.
Hoochie mama.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So, obviously, as far as character customization is concerned, whether that is in a virtual reality setting or like you were saying, like in an MMO or, other like PC games where there's too many keybinds that's confusing everyone. I go with the norm that I wanted to make my character as accurately close to my physical appearance as possible. And so with that, when I initially did the avatar system, in VR, this was me starting out. This was way prior to the newer avatar system, as you can see. I just had like a red hoodie because red was my favorite color, and then I just had long hair. There was no ponytail option, which really bugged me, believe it or not. But I had a long hair, which was the second best alternative, and then I just kind of did some defaults, and then it just kind of went from there. And then I was like, "Hey, look at me! I have a red hoodie. What's up?" And then I felt great. And then when the new avatar system came out, I'm like, part of me was on the floor praying, like, "You better give me at least one ponytail option, and I'm good, and I'm fine. I
And
just want a
there it is.
ponytail for once." And there it was. Yep, ponytail option. I'm like, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Thank you. And so I changed to the ponytail almost immediately. And then I kind of took a look around the whole like customization options, and I try to make it close to me as possible. And I might have just done mostly defaults because I was too tired and too lazy to actually like take a look. But I was like, it's good enough. And so I just kind of went with it. And then over the course of you know, these past few months, I kind of wanted to just kind of branch a little outside the norm and just kind of do a little experimentation. And so, I initially kind of like had a black hoodie, or something to that effect, and kind of like
Hmm.
what you got on. And I was like, I don't know. And so I wanted to try to go for something a little more sassy, a little more, I guess, feminine, if you will. And so I don't remember the outfit I had at that time, and I really don't. But then I remembered back when, roughly around the time that Alexa's video came about the $10 million creator fund and the whole interview with the people who were a part of the Horizon team. I remembered somewhere around that time, new outfits came to be, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm
Hmm.
going some shopping!" And I looked at my avatar system, and I looked at the outfits, and I'm still just perusing through, and I saw this, and I'm like, "Okay, this has roses, this has skulls. This is like 100% me." And so I chose the outfit, and then this became my go-to everyday outfit, and I was like, "Yes." But like, do I have red hair in real life? No. Do I have this exact same dress or something in comparison to it? No. But the general norm of, character customization is not so much try to go for, an accurate representation of how you look, and in your physical form. But for me personally, this is more of creating a character that, while it has some like physical representation of me, but also, I can kind of feel more myself, even if there's some stuff, again, like the hair color and the clothing, that's not necessarily something I have going with right now. And so that's just how I became,
Mhm.
hot.
How you became hot. There's the story of Sassy 3K, the autobiography in stores soon. Now, now it's I don't know if I want to say it's funny to me, but the character customizations in some of these games prior to VR, you would see memes that say when you find a legendary item that doesn't match your outfit, but the stats are through the roof, and the meme is just this ridiculous costume that doesn't even look like it ever would go together, no matter how in fantasy or real life. But in VR, it's kind of like you can really customize quite a bit of going over the top, whether it's just a couple choices of piercings or different colored hair that are not the norm, and eyes.
Mhm.
Um, VR is really giving us a lot of ways to express ourselves, to feel more comfortable in our own virtual skin.
Mm,
And I guess I'm kind of basic. I'm okay with my basicity, but love seeing everyone else's avatars because it really
yeah,
kind of gives you just this small window into a little bit about them before you even get a chance to meet them, and
yeah.
then it can become a talking point or a door opener. But avatars
Oh,
and all of the customization.
yes. I actually just signed up for a course. It's called The Psychology of Avatars for Designers. I'm not a
Ooh.
designer, but I'm deeply interested in the psychology behind the avatar. I've been an avatar like user for many years, not on different platforms, and
Hmm.
I think it's very interesting to delve into the psychology of it, how people differentiate between avatars and then maybe the choices that they make and what it represents to them. So I'd be very interested. I just started the course, so it'll be like a 7-week course. I'll be happy to report back later.
All
But
right.
I
In
find
two
that it's
months,
interesting. Yeah, right. To just kind of dive deep into what that psychology is, really.
that's fascinating. Have either one of you thought about creating something specifically for people to have a safe space, or is that kind of lending to the start of what your latest world is?
Well, I feel like our collaboration is definitely could be a safe place for people to go to learn and also talk about their experiences where we hold a safe place for them with no judgments. So
Hmm.
that is definitely possible. And then like I said with my worlds are very peaceful places. They're meant for deep meaningful conversations, quiet interactions. So that's just me. I don't know what Sassy's take on that is.
Well, your worlds that you're creating, those quiet spaces for positive interactions and discussions. I never used to be the person who wanted to join those things because I thought I didn't have interest in them. Maybe I felt I
Mm,
didn't need the to clear my mind. I had my ways of uh, de-stressing after a day, and
mm,
I've come to find out that these worlds are really valuable. Even if you don't think that you
mhm.
need them, you should definitely check them out because just going to a world like Maxwell Park was one of the first ones that I went
Yeah.
to recently. And when I went there, I was by myself and I just went to explore. And I really was appreciating not just how it was built, but just the atmosphere. It was so perfect.
Hmm.
And I felt like this is something that people needed to see. And so through
Yeah.
that, it's been featured on Vidyuu channel. It's been featured in the Horizon Tours world. It's been featured as the month of November as the featured world and intro. So these worlds, we want to make sure that we're highlighting those in the tours world and art and meditation worlds. So, keep creating them.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been to any of them, please check them out. They're incredible. And even if you go there by yourself or with a group with a purpose, no matter what, it's still worth just checking them out. And, of course, like the world and leave a picture to help, support those creators. But let's come back to the world that we're talking about today, and that is the get informed about everything LGBTQ. So there's a lot of good content there. Who found all of the lists of content that you put together? Because that's a lot of typing, and I know about typing
Oh
long,
my.
lengthy things.
Yeah.
Everything that I build,
Oh boy.
that's the only thing that I've built. That's the first word I've built out of blocks, and half of it is Tanzer. So I can't take even credit for that. So text is text, and I type, 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 type. So who put in the work for research and who typed it all out?
Well, I did provide some research, but we also equally looked up our own things because we had to decide like what are we showcasing. We want some statistics. Okay, so we'll put some
Hmm.
statistics. And then we want like pronouns. Okay, let's talk about like the different types in the LGBTQ and what does that look like. And I think it was a lot of discussion, and then of course we teach this at the university, so I had a lot of
Oh wow.
tools that I shared. And then the whole thing about words that hurt. Like, I mean, that,
Mm.
you just don't know, right? Like, until you actually go through a list of words that hurt. We felt like we wanted to equally just try to disseminate as much information as possible that would feel like it was a world that had just chock full of different stuff that was very prominent. Like we wanted it to
Hmm.
hit the mark. So I mean, had a share in handing over a lot of stuff, but we equally looked things up as well. So yeah, and then we both did a lot of typing.
A lot of typing.
Lot
I
of
was looking
typing.
for I was looking
Oh
for some
gosh.
like, misspellings or punctuation. I'm like, y'all were spot on. Y'all put some work into that typing. So
Well,
I got to
we
give you both
always need a
credit.
second set of eyes for that because I'm
Well,
notorious for missing
I
and misspelling
can
something because it's hard to
I can
type on here. Like,
I can definitely say that I was a certified spelling checker because I know how much I've been doing it on so many people's world, Ecoflower included. And I know that for me, like I've always been like very mindful of like any misspelling or misuse of any like punctuations. And
Mm.
throughout the thousands of texts that we have to type out, I've
Oh yeah.
always have checked each and every single word one by one to make sure that there are no misspelling and no misuse of any punctuations or anything of the sort. And I would have checked numerous times. Echo obviously has been my second pair of eyes, as she's said before, but I can say for the most part, in terms of checking the spelling, I have been the one who's been majorly been doing that. And then Echoes,
Yeah.
like I said, it's just a second pair of eyes.
yeah, I'm old. My eyes hurt. So check this, please, Sassy. Just like,
Well,
I can't look at it anymore. I'm so done. I'm cross-eyed.
well,
Like,
well, I wanted to point it out because even though there is so much information to absorb, you nailed it. You really did perfectly represent as much information as possible without it just feeling like I'm in a side of a book and I'm just reading forever. It doesn't feel like it at all. It's fantastic. But you went a step further. You created these kiosks with these characters representing people that also give
Shalissa.
you a summary. The summary is perfection. I literally was, while I was reading, I hit the button and it
Yeah.
was giving me the snippet of a couple of the things, and I'm like, okay, we're reading this line. Yep. All right, we're reading this line. All right, we're down here. And then I absorbed everything in between and I'm like, oh, this is really good. And I look and I'm like, there's another one, and I just jumped from kiosk to kiosk. So tell me about that. What was the idea behind that?
The idea behind the summaries was I recall, the past 10,000s of times in high school where we will get an essay and like we'll like have like an introduction and like three middle paragraphs, and then we have
Hmm.
like this conclusion, and the conclusion is pretty much
Conclusion.
the summary of just talking about everything that was discussed. And I
Shout out to
and
Sassy's English teacher. You did a good job.
and so yeah, shout out to my high school teachers. Y'all are loyal. Anyway, so the premise of the summaries, like kind of like how it is in like, language arts or English or whatever class it is, respectively. Um, the summary, you kind of just want to take the main key information and just kind of just scoop it all up into like one 30-second recording. And I totally wish it was longer because I know there were some parts that was very difficult for me to try to like fit everything in like that 30-second time frame. I feel like I had to speak as fast as like Eminem's rapping to like really hit the mark. Yeah, the premise of it was just, I wanted to make sure that each kiosk had, each like specific key information that people needed to be mindful about gender questioning, like just remembering that it's okay, you're not alone, you're loved, you're enough, that kind of thing. And talking about advice on like what to do while you're gender questioning and just that kind of thing. And then another example, like on how to be an ally, just be respectful of people's pronouns and overall just be more understanding and more open-minded about supporting people. I mean, you might necessarily not have a whole lot of information, but that's a really good opportunity to learn and check out the world. By the way, wink, wink.
The summaries are amazing. The text, the way it's displayed is amazing. And the message and the information is just so powerful. So, as far as LGBTQ allies, it's a term that's new to me in the last few years that I never know how to use that properly because I've had people in my family as part of the LGBT community, friends out in whether it was school or in friendships out in the world in real life. And I don't personally like actively go out and say I'm an ally because I have friends in the community or I support who they are or I actively try to create safe spaces or collaborative environments in Horizon. How do you act like appropriately call someone an ally, or does it even matter to call yourself an ally because the world is so
Mhm.
obsessed with labels? I feel like just
Hmm.
saying that there are allies is the point.
I feel like it's
No.
important to at least say, for me, it's important to say I am an ally, and
Hmm.
how does what does that look like for me? Um, and that looks like when somebody's misgendering somebody, what do I do? Do I step
Mm,
in? Do I say something? Do I call them out on their behavior? And the answer is yes. So, and I don't have to do that even in a mean way, and I hate, I'm not a label person, but
right.
I feel like it's important to let people know, hey, I'm an ally, I support you, so that they know that I'm a person that they can talk to or confide in, that it's a
Hmm.
safe place for them. Sometimes we have to ask questions like, when is it safe to use those pronouns?
Mm,
Like, because it may
yes.
not be. So, I think letting people know that you're an ally is important. I support that community and many other communities as well. So that's just my perspective and my comfort zone. Does that
Right.
help?
No, great. Yes, absolutely.
I feel for me like it's like I'm gender questioning and I'm still, technically logistically speaking, I'm still an ally. Again, kind of like what Echo's saying, instead of misgendering people, I really highly encourage everybody to ask for pronouns, whether you're making the assumption that someone is an ally or if they're some part of the LGBTQ community in some fashion, because kind of like the saying, better safe than sorry. It's better safe to ask than to be sorry about
Hmm.
misgendering someone and
Hmm.
completely like ruining like the first impressions of
For
another
sure.
individual. And like while I've been majorly being misgendered throughout the past year in VR, I would get occasionally get like a few people saying like, are you a boy or are you a girl, or or some people go above and beyond and say like, so what are your pronouns? And I go,
Hmm.
like I'm like logically speaking, I go by he him, but I've been gender questioning and I'm trying to get my friends to try using she her pronouns while I'm in here, just to kind of just see how the ball rolls, so to speak. But it's better to be respectful than disrespectful, is kind of how I like to go
Sure.
about.
Yeah, the pronouns being a part of all of these apps like Instagram now has a place where you can put your pronouns.
Yeah.
LinkedIn now has a place where you can put pronouns. So this is something that is becoming more mainstream
Mm.
for larger companies to start involving. So it will take some time for people to get comfortable with it who are not familiar with being
Yeah.
asked what your pronouns are. And I think that being an ally, if someone asks you your pronouns, it's not a negative thing and not to take offense to it. It's a
Mm-mm.
respectful thing to make sure that they're referring to you in the way that you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of
Hmm.
like for me, and partially joking, partially serious, I've kind of lived with my entire life being a darker skin where people say, are you Mexican? And that's in Latin American countries, unless you are from Mexico, that one specific country, it's an insult. And so for me, I have kind of flipped it around to where I laugh about it because it's become so normalized where people would just say,
Mm.
"Do you speak Mexican?" And Mexican isn't a language, it's Spanish.
I hear
So
that
things
often.
like that. Right. So for me, if someone were to say, "Are you Mexican?" I say, "No, I'm Colombian, and I was born in Baltimore, but my
Yeah.
heritage, I still respect it." And my father, his background and his heritage beyond that, who knows where it started. But to ask somebody he or her or they, whatever your pronouns are, it's not a disrespectful thing. So something else I want to make sure that we share with everyone watching and
Yeah,
those who
that
are
it's okay.
unsure.
It's okay to ask pronouns, but it's not okay to ask about sexual orientation, like,
Yes,
or you're
exactly.
about your bits or things like that. And that's where
Hmm.
people don't know. Like, they're like, they'll ask these questions, and I'm like, no, no. As an ally, you
Oh,
have to smack people on the hand a little bit and say, that's not a really appropriate thing to do. And maybe you want to reword that, and that's none of your business.
that's a great comparison. The people approaching Sassy saying, "Are you a boy or a girl?" They don't feel that's disrespectful. So it's just swapping the terms to be more understanding.
Yeah.
It's a great comparison. Thank you for saying that. So if I heard you correctly, Sassy, is this you telling us that you want us to refer your pronouns are she, her for now? Or is that something you're sharing? That's
Yep.
great. Thank you for
Yes.
sharing that with us. That's
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, that's obviously the first that we're hearing this, and we're a part of that, and we're so grateful that you feel comfortable. We can also share that with others before they misgender. They can know that it's she, her for now.
Mhm.
And you just started
Mhm.
using
Mhm.
that for the convention that you went to as well, didn't you?
Yes. Hmm.
How did that go?
Part of the reason why I wanted to try she, her pronouns when I'm on Horizon was because, as we've stated earlier, I've tried them out last weekend at the anime convention, and I had this, like, I was in kind of in the wrong mindset that people were going to ask me initially, like about my pronouns and why I'm using it, although I'm my physical appearance is that of a masculine setting. And so I had that mindset, and I was like, okay, I don't know if this is really working. Maybe I'll just try asking my friends about using she, her pronouns. Although part of me is like afraid, but part of me, like, people are like very understanding and very open minded, so I'm not too worried about it. But convention wise, the new pronouns went fine. Again, like I said, because I was in the wrong mindset, I didn't have a whole lot of time to observe and record and take notes. I can say for certain, over the course of that weekend, I starting to like gradually, and this is kind of like over the course of like the weekend and all this, mind you, but I definitely started to feel a little more myself, so to speak, with the new pronouns, and it showed up on the badge alongside my alias of Sassy minus the 3K, and then like my real name, and I was like, wow, I feel so me. It's like, yes,
That's
queen,
incredible.
you know. Hmm.
And feeling that way over the last years while you've been gender questioning, is it kind of giving you like less stress or a little bit of weight off your shoulders, or how has that made you feel recently?
It has definitely taken my stress away, like trying out the new pronouns for sure. I've been just kind of, if I've been honestly more observant over the weekend, and then I gotta like had a great opportunity that I do want to bring up at some point, where I got to meet someone who is also part of the LGBTQ community, a celebrity of sorts. And so, it's definitely felt great and like a little more stress. And I want to kind of go back to the topic about me being misgendered, where initially, like I've said earlier, I was annoyed of sorts when, people weren't really being respectful and were just kind of like saying oh, your voice does not sound like how you look or something along the lines of that. And it was like, initially it was annoying. And then, like I said, I got more used to it and just tolerated more. And then overall, while I was gender questioning, I actually began to kind of look back on that, and I kind of saw it as like maybe a sign that not necessarily I'm a she or I'm transgender and use female pronouns or have a feminine characteristics, but more so of the fact that maybe who I am on a biological level is not reflective towards my gender identity.
Gotcha. No, that's great. It's a lot of good information there because there are people who are not either knowingly an ally or they're not a part of the LGBT community that don't really know where to find the information to be an ally and to be
Mhm,
respectful, and the fear and the stigma behind the appropriate way to ask about your pronouns.
mhm,
A lot of that stuff just isn't out there yet, but there are some
mhm.
resources that you shared with me for the LGBT community and allies. Do you have some of those resources? I think GLAD was one of those.
Yeah, so a few resources. I mean, obviously go to the world if you want to like look into more of the resources that I'm about to share or some that I haven't mentioned. But the three widely known resources that I've mentioned is the Trevor Project,
Mhm,
which is
Hmm.
widely known to help end suicide among young LGBTQ members. So they're really, really great cause, and you can text, email, or you can actually use the chat function from their website to get in touch with them. The next one is GLAD, and I know it's an acronym, and I can't even think of it right now, but essentially they are using news outlets like broadcast, print, digital, different kinds and different types of news sources to essentially share stories from LGBTQ members to hopefully gain some inspiration for others. And then the last one is GLSEN, which stands for the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, which ensures that students are able to work in a school environment that's free of bullying and harassment, and that's specifically, obviously, towards young LGBTQ members within the academic setting, so within a school environment.
Sassy, thank you for sharing those resources, and we'll put links to those in the description of this video. And very important, and you can find those links also in Horizon in your world. Anything to close us off? Anything you want to share at all? It doesn't matter if it's a message to those who are looking for a safe space, people who want to learn more about the LGBT community,
Oh, wow.
LGBTQ plus community.
I would say my message for the community here is that it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay to have questions. And the hardest part about these sensitive topics or hot topics, as I call them, is kind of meeting people where they are. So if you come across somebody who's not educated, um, don't get angry. Try not to be reactive and just try to educate. And I need to take my own advice, but try to educate them the best that you can or redirect them because knowledge is power. So, and if you know anybody who's struggling or needs help, send them over to Sassy and Sassy's World.
So I will take this time to share a few messages. The first two I'm about to say has been from someone that I actually got to meet last weekend at the anime convention, Kieran Strange, who is transgender, go by he/him pronouns, but is also a voice actor. And for those people like me who play Borderlands 3, Kieran Strange voices Lorelei, which I've never knew until this moment, but also voiced it in other shows, anime. A few words that I've got to hear from Kieran Strange when I was at my convention last weekend. The first thing I've heard, which I think is really, really important to those, especially like me, who are gender questioning, just enjoy the process. And that goes towards, people like me who are gender questioning, take the time to really just enjoy it to the fullest, and I highly encourage those to really explore their identity, like how I've been doing with using new pronouns and trying out different articles of clothing, and to also accredit Kieran Strange again for the next thing. When you like want to come out or or how you want to explore your identity more, just take the time to do it in a safe place where you won't get bashed on for who you reflectively see yourself as identity wise. and just feel free to try out more articles of clothing. Like I've been wearing women's leggings. I look good in them, by the way. Another thing too, cosplay is really great as well. Trying out new pronouns, that all of that's great. But just take the time overall to just enjoy the process. Explore your identity however you see fit. And my last message: you're loved, you're enough, and don't ever feel like you're alone because you have a whole ton of people, whether they're your friends, family, loved ones, or just people overall within the LGBTQ community that are standing with you while you're on this journey of gender questioning, or if you're already found out who your gender identity is, there's people that are there supporting you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I
Mhm.
know I said I wanted them to wrap it up with their last comments, but I do have one more question, Sassy. In
Okay.
Horizon or in VR in general, did you feel it was hard to make friends or it was different to make friends than in the real world because of trying to discover who you were or people misgendering you in the beginning? Because when I first met you, I was immediately gravitated to you. Like I wanted to be around you and get to know you, and I wanted to learn more about you just because your personality just shined through who you were just the second that I saw you in the plaza and in random worlds. And I think that's why when I first met you and you were, going around doing your, oh yeah, I was mimicking you just to kind of give you that, hey, Sassy, I recognize you're here and I just want to say that you're awesome. And it kind of just became a thing when every time I saw you in a world. But back to the question, did you find it different or more difficult or easier to make friends in VR? Or what was your experience making friends in VR?
Absolutely. Did I find it difficult? To some extent, because there's days where I don't feel like my sassy self, not because I'm having a bad day or because, I'm dealing with personal issues. It's just more so
Hmm.
that I just don't happen to feel talkative at that certain point in time. And that's not like to be directly rude towards anyone that I'm with and within that session. It's just more like I just don't feel like talking right now, and that's just kind of like my flow for right now. But then there's also other times where it's like I can be, me, and it's like, hey, I'm sassy, or I'm playing on the piano because that's what I do. Or there's times where I kind of go like too much, so to speak, and I just kind of go all over the place. But it's strange because the friends that I've met in high school, especially in choir, because that's kind of where I mostly made friends, was when I was in choir and in the choir room,
Hmm.
doing all this fun stuff. It definitely was weird. And specifically towards my freshman year, I was very silent, very isolated. And then that, caused some depression, prior to that. And I remember, one point I decided to just kind of go all out and just started expressing myself. And then that was kind of the day that I learned that it's not that bad to really be vulnerable around people and to really, for the lack of a better word, show your true colors. And so when I've learned that lesson, I realized that, hey, maybe it's not so bad. And so, I wanted to try that again with, in virtual reality. And sure enough, I got Oh, I'm trying not to cry because this is really emotional for me. But I've learned now that, like I got all of you, and I really appreciate, all of you guys, especially Echo for coming here and being my, co-partner today, for just,
For sure.
allowing me to just be me without any judgment or shame, and just letting me be me.
No, that's great, and I'm really glad that we were given the opportunity to meet you and celebrate you, and not just through Flutter's idea of the graduation world and the prom world, and giving you the graduation that I believe you
Mhm.
still ended up having, didn't you? Did you like a
Yeah.
drive-through graduation? Yeah. Um,
Yeah, drive through.
yeah, I mean, it's something that I want everyone to understand coming into VR, coming into Horizon, even if you feel alone in the real world, if you feel as though maybe you have trouble making friends, you're not sure about your own identity, Horizon really does give you that chance to find that out and to meet people in the most unconventional ways, whether it's taking your son's Oculus or your daughter's Oculus and it's now yours, and you decide to go and build in a workshop with a former high school student and make this really well informative world. These things are possible, and we welcome everybody to do that.
Mhm.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for your awesome answers today. And I wanted to know, what is it about Horizon Worlds that keep you guys coming back on a daily basis and creating in here?
I love all the weirdness of it. So, like, since we're in
That's a good
beta,
answer.
like, there's all these quirky things that happen that make me laugh. Like, whether it be you fall through a world and or you take a picture of a blocked person and they're now a gray blob. But also the people. So, and I think the people keep me coming back, and the potential for making anything happen here is
Right.
desirable to me. Just being able to create whatever you want. So,
Cool.
Sassy, what are you doing here every day?
And
Why
Sass
are you
Master?
back all the time?
For me, like the biggest thing really has been the community. And the reasoning behind that, the rationale was because when I initially joined Horizon, I didn't think, like several months would go by and I would have this, big standing, like this, like reputation that I would have with practically everyone I've met. And so here we are now. I know pretty much most of these people that's within this distance right now. And it's so weird to think that like people actually like me for who I am. And when I got emotional earlier talking about it,
Correction.
sorry.
We love who
Okay.
you are.
Yeah,
mhm.
I know. Yeah. Sorry.
Ooh
Sorry.
woo.
I just got
Ooh
corrected.
woo.
Dang. I feel like high school all over again.
Use the wrong
Um,
adjective. It is love. We love who you are.
yeah. Yeah, sorry. They
It's
love
true.
me for who I am. But when I got emotional earlier, like I really had to emphasize how grateful I was meeting all of you and for you loving me for who I am.
Mhm.
And it really like meant a lot. I actually like almost cried just now thinking about it.
We heard you,
You already
Sassy.
know why I keep
I
coming
got a
back, but
bonus
if you really want to
question.
know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh,
You
we
bonus
do
guys
want to know.
question.
are
Love it.
so fantastic, and your friendship is amazing. You have this like age gap, and it's been brought together because you have this thing in common, which is Horizon. Do you have
Mhm.
any plans on building anything else together?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. And you never know. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I love it. Woo!
Yeah.
It's an interesting
Thank you.
question, Merk, because everything that's been built in the real world, it's out of necessity. All the tools that we have, all of the developments in technology and the evolution of things, it's out of necessity. And when they met, they felt that there was a need to get this message out, people a place where they can learn, share the resources, and not feel like they're alone. And that was the message that I got from the world. I loved the message about you are loved, you are not alone, and there are people who are out there that you can talk to. So, thank you
Mhm.
for that.
Mhm.
I just wanted to ask if anyone in the room hadn't opened up their menu and dropped a like on this world, that they please do that right now, because don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that bell. Yeah, woo woo.
I just want to say thank you for having us both here, and talking about the LGBTQ world. And I think it's really important, and I appreciate that kind of service-minded attitude of just spreading that kind of information. It really is heartfelt and wonderful to meet people who care. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for that. So, we
Mhm.
really are grateful for your presence here, for your time, for your thoughts, all of the great messages that you've shared. And we want to continue to do this. So, in order to do that, obviously, as Lake said, please watch the video, share it, continue to subscribe and follow. We'll create more content like this, and that'll help us be able to continue to do this and do this great work for people.
Thanks for having us on here. This really meant a lot, and I'm just glad that the LGBTQ world has gained some, recognition. And also, my buddy would like to say a few words. Sup to Vidyuu? There we go.
Subdivision. All right. Thank you all so much for checking out Horizon Live with Oculus 410. Thank you to my guests, Sassy3K, Echo Flower. Check us out on Vidyuu Nights. Check out Vidyuu tutorials on YouTube. And everybody, thanks for watching. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.